I am Avinash BP, founder of Aquamatsia. I am an engineer plus MBA, graduated from IIM. I've worked in startups, I've built businesses, I scaled businesses from scratch. This is about my education and career, but something that is in the core of me is the hobby. Aquascaping and aquariums is where I found my purpose, where I found my peace, and hence Aqua Matsya was born. I started my hobby in 2019 during COVID, just a couple of days before the lockdown was announced. We got a very small tank and we kept it in our home. I made a lot of mistakes with the tank, learned from the mistakes, and I fell in love with the hobby, and that is when I decided I'll take part in contests also. IAPLC 2021 was my first contest. I ranked 1300 odd. IAPLC 2024 was my second attempt. I ranked 476 in it. And we are setting up a contest this year also, and hopefully I'll set up a contest tank every year that's going to come. So in all of this aquascaping experience, what I have learned is that beyond fish caping and growing plants in your tank, to me aquascaping is about creating a living art in your homes, bringing a piece of nature into your home, enjoying it, just staring at it for hours together. That is what aquascaping actually means to me, and this is going to be the core of Aquamatsia also. When I started Aquamatsia, we wanted to make sure of one thing. There was a barrier that aquascaping, growing plants, is difficult. People found distance with it, and it was looked upon as something that only experts can do. No, it is not. This is the very myth that Aquamatsia wants to break. When we started, I asked myself a couple of questions like what will Aquamatsia do and what it means to the hobby. We wanted to work with everyone, build products that can mean a great deal to aquascapers who are starting a new aquascape, and also to experts who are chasing perfection in their tank. And secondly, I wanted to build a brand based out of India which can compete with the best ones that's available all across. At the same time, keep the brand rooted to culture and the community of India, and more importantly, the conditions of India where our aquascapers are actually growing the tank, be it the water conditions, water parameters, the availability of plants, availability of fishes, etc. So this is the core of Aquamatsia. Today we have all the products. We'll have the launch done soon. We are not only going to cut a ribbon or pull the screen. We are going to use our plants. We are going to place them in their very first homes, which is going to be this tank. This would be scaped by our very own dog here. And that is how Aquamatsia launches itself. Aquamatsia launches itself as a nice aquascaper, not just as a brand. An aquascaper is somebody who creates the living art, creates the nature, and that is what we are going to show today. How Aquamatsia helps create, how Aquamatsia helps people unite. So Aquamatsia begins today with nature, our plants, with art, the scape, and with you all, the community. Thanks everyone for being here. So my mom is here. My mom is going to reveal the Aquamatsia products, and we're going to start. So these are the very first products of Aquamatsia. These are tissue culture plants here right in front of you. We are starting with carpeting plants. We also are producing Bucephalandras and Anubias. We have close to 11 varieties of Bus and 10 varieties of Anubias, all propagated in-house, and most of it are exotics. Carpeting plants would be available in the TC format and in the pot format. Bucephalandras and Anubias would be hardened in our own hydroponic farm, which is a completely automated high-tech farm wherein we are doing something very new. Our farm is helping Bus adjust to extreme temperatures of up to 35 and 37 degrees Celsius so that our Bus can be put in every hobbyist home in India. And that is what Aquamatsia is already doing, preparing products, preparing plants, and making everything available for Indian audience, which suits Indian conditions. So that is it from me. I think I'll hand it over to Doc, the much more awaited event, that is the aquascaping workshop. So Doc here will be using these plants and preparing a Iwagumi Scape. He'll cover all points of design principles, aquascaping techniques, maintenance routine, and since this event is going live, you can put in a lot of questions also. Thank you. I'll take leave, so I hand it over to Doc now.
First of all, I'd like to extend my wishes and regards to Avinash. So he is one among us. He's a hobbyist who's decided to take the big step and start this gallery and to cater to us also on a much more, intricate scale. Let's start with the session right away. So before we dive into what scape we are doing here, let's first look at what an aquascape is. So we all would have grown up looking at fish tanks in, these normal aquariums. We all would have been drawn towards fish. What differentiates the tanks that we do and what you see elsewhere is the importance that we give to aesthetics, to the well-being of the fish, to plants, as well as the scape. So how I would define an aquascape? There's no actual proper definition, but what I would say is it's a good combination of hardscape materials like rocks, wood, plants, and fish put together in a particular theme that is also very aesthetically pleasing for us to see. And that is what we are going to concentrate on as well today. Now, most of you who are viewing this would already have set up planter tanks before. Let's look at the different styles first. So the first style that evolved in aquascaping was obviously the nature style, where we added just a few driftwood, a few rocks, and we had some plants, and then we just added the fish. So there was not really a particular theme as such, but the nature style is still one of the most common aquascaping themes that we see today. And that is also one of the reasons why aquascaping evolved. The next style that we would look at is something called as an Iwagumi. So Iwagumi was made famous, and it was obviously founded by the late Takashi Amano. So Iwagumi is actually an ancient Japanese concept which basically means rock arrangement. So we see rocks in a lot of places in nature. For example, the mountains, or by the riverside, or even by the beach, where you have the waves going and hitting the rocks, right? So that is how he developed this style of Iwagumi, which basically means a rock arrangement. So it was actually an ancient Japanese gardening concept, basically landscaping, which made its way to aquascaping. Then we also have the infamous Brazilian style, which also evolved from Iwagumi, where we don't use just the green plants or the carpeting plants. We add a lot of stems, we add a lot of color, and we basically make it look like a painting. And then we have the Dutch style. So Dutch style is mainly for those who are really focused on growing these exotic plants. Then you have something called as the diorama style. A diorama is a very misunderstood style because people think just mixing rocks and wood and adding a lot of hardscape makes a diorama. A diorama is basically just a representation in an aquarium of something that you see in nature. So you go outside for a walk, or you go for a hike, or you go on a field trip to a forest or something like that. You capture something in your mind and you replicate it in your tank. That is basically diorama. So that is another very misunderstood topic because people look at contest tanks and they think that is diorama. But diorama is one of the styles that is actually used in contest tanks. And you also have newer evolving styles now, something like a jungle style where we use a lot of tree stumps and we make it a little dark. We use a lot of moss and we give that feeling that you're in a forest pathway. Why I'm giving all this information is there is an aquascaping style that is there to cater to everyone's needs and interest. Obviously, everyone's needs and interest is not going to be the same. You might like some other style. You might prefer having only plants. You might prefer having only hardscape. You also have only hardscapes also. There are different styles that cater to every single hobbyist out there. And today we are going to look specifically at the Iwagumi style. So let's start with the mother rock. Since most of you already call it as the mother rock, let's start with the placement of the mother rock because that is what is going to dictate how we are going to complete the rest of the scape. Usually before I add the substrate, I like adding the mother rock first and fixing the placement before I proceed. Because like I said, when I scape, the entire scape revolves around this central piece of rock, which is the mother rock or the oyashi. We have already pre-selected these rocks because we cannot select and do it within the given period of time. So we've pre-selected the rocks, but we are going to be scaping this completely in a fresh way.
So the scape might look done very fast. This is because Doc has already come to the gallery, he's already done the scape. He spent a good time with selecting the rocks and understanding where to place them. Now we are just going to show you the final scape of how it is done.
So when it comes to selecting rocks, so before I place this rock, let's start with how to actually select rocks. So the first step is you deciding what type of rock you're going to go ahead and scape with. So what I prefer is actually Cerio stone. Yes, I know that Cerio rocks do alter the water parameters, but the patterns of a Cerio rock is very, very crucial and important for an Iwagumi. So that is the most preferred rock. Also the availability. Cerio is more easily available for all of us than most of the other types of rocks. So the reason why I like Cerio is it has this nice dark color, and most of these rocks aren't flat. They have this beautiful texture that you can see, and they also have these patterns which you can use to direct the flow of the scape. And also you have these white calcifications on Cerio rocks which add more to the character of the stone. So this is the rock that I've chosen to be my main stone. So we'll start off by adding pumice stones as the first layer. the main source of beneficial bacteria inside the tank is always going to be the substrate. Which is why whenever you choose a substrate, be it aqua soil, be it dirted tanks or anything, it must always allow the water current to pass through the substrate. As most of you know, we always add more soil towards the back. So the height of the substrate is higher towards the back because that sloping effect gives a better sense of perception. Because as you know, the sides of any, be it a square or a rectangle, will always be smaller than the diagonal of the rectangle. So we get extra distance to actually, scape a little bit more. But when it comes to an Iwagumi, we don't just, slope it at the back and leave it even. I'll get to that point as we start scaping with the rocks. So for now, for the initial rock setup, I'll be adding it evenly. But in the final output, the substrate is definitely not going to be even. And always keep a few extra rocks with you. Don't just buy exactly what you need. Always have a few extra rocks because you never know when they might come in handy. So it's always better to have, specific rocks as well as some extra rocks. Because extra rocks will always come in handy. You can always set up a new tank also for it. So this is not going to be our entire substrate. I'm just going to use this as, sort of base so that we can start placing our rocks. Now coming to how to actually position the main rock. So never ever keep your main rock in the center. Because as you can see, this divides the tank into two separate halves, which makes it symmetrical. Okay, and the goal is not to establish symmetry, it's to establish aesthetics. So symmetry is not important to us at all. In fact, it is the opposite. It will ruin the actual perception of the scape. So what I generally do is, I split the tank into 4 parts, 4 sections, and I try to always keep it in the third quarter. Okay, let's not pay too much attention to golden ratio as such for now. But when you divide it into 4 equal quarters, I always try to position the main rock in the third quarter. You might have a lot of tricks for this. I have tried every single material that you can possibly use for this. This is the most common. Now, a lot of people use cotton. A lot of people use cigarette filters. But nothing comes close to the stability that you would get with tissue paper. The reason being, tissue paper is more flexible. You can get it into very thin crevices, which you may not be able to do with the cigarette filter because it's a much thicker material. You may not be able to push it into those tight crevices. And tissue paper melts faster also, and once it sets, all of them have the same strength. But why I prefer tissue paper is, the reason that I said first, you can get it even into the finest of gaps.
Get the cheapest one possible.
Yeah, it's on.
That works the best.
Yeah, cheapest one always works best. Stick it in a way that it's not seen in the front. So always go at the back and place it. So I'm used to getting glue burns on my skin and things like that. But I would always advise you to wear a pair of gloves. Any gloves would do. So I've squeezed in the tissue paper and I'm adding cyanoacrylate glue. Okay, the reason why I'm adding more substrate is, I'm going to use the Z-plane now, which is the height. I'm going to place this rock at a slightly higher level than this rock. That is, the base of the rock is going to be higher for the second rock. Okay. Now when you look at this, the right side is already very dominant. So what did I say about the secondary rock, if you guys remember? It should, somehow balance the scape. It's not going to balance it out 100%, but we are never trying to achieve 100% balance of the scape. One side is always going to be little on the heavier side, but we are trying to at least even the odds a little bit. So the secondary rock, so these are the rocks that were handpicked for the scape by me. So among all of this, whatever I have left, this is the larger rock. So this is going to be my secondary rock. As most of you would have already guessed by now, see, this is why placing the main rock first, taking your time, is very important, because the other rocks will basically arrange itself. So now the right side is already very heavy. Me placing the secondary rock on the right side doesn't make any sense at all. So I'm going to place it on the left side. But again, because this is smaller, I spoke to you about the fifth axis, right? The relationship of this rock to the rock that is already there. So we are going to place it a little behind. We're just going to play around a little bit with the position of the rock. And when you're also placing the rock, make sure that this top surface, right, it's not very flat. Now it's not just about the position for the pattern. Now when I place it like this, right, the top surface appears to be very flat. So because it is flat, it may not, this rock is very pointy. So it's not going to be in harmony as much. So me just tilting the rock a little bit will change the perception of this rock. So even though Iwagumi might seem very simple because just a placement of 3 or 5 rocks, there are a lot of intricate details that go unnoticed, that are not explained in many images that you see on Google. So the theme of this scape, I'm going to have the right side completely heavy and I'm going to have the left side smaller. So when I'm going to layer the substrate also, now you might see that the left side the substrate is higher, but when I'm actually going to add the substrate, the right side is going to be higher. So it's going to be taller here, the substrate is going to be taller here, and it's going to taper off at that edge. So the substrate also here plays a very, very important role. The same scape, I will show it to you with the flat substrate before I add the final substrate at the back. You will see the difference. Okay, so how you actually heighten the substrate and give the quantity of the substrate to one side will also play a huge role in the final outcome of the scape. So this is going to be my tertiary rock, third rock that I'm going to place. Now like I said, my flow is going to be towards this side. So you can imagine it in 2 ways after I place this. Either it's just a mountainscape that is going down like this, or it could be like a water current hitting these rocks here. Because as we get closer to land, the size of the rocks is going to increase. So you can imagine this 2 ways. So now is the scape starting to make more sense to you guys? Because I have it pictured in my head. You can say no also if you can be honest. Okay, so by the placement of the third rock, the theme of your scape should be very clear. So that is why I'm asking you after placing these 3 rocks. Okay, so that is what you should achieve when you place the third rock. The main theme is going to be clear. Whatever we are going to add is not going to change the outlook of the scape. It's just going to improve our perception a little bit. That is why this rock is also very crucial. All the other rocks will only be supporting rocks. This is actually going to be a 5 rock scape, but you can even count it as a 3 rock scape because the other 2 rocks that I'm going to add do not carry as much weightage as these 3 rocks. So we started from the third quarter on the right side and we moved completely this side. We have ignored this side. So now we don't want the entire thing to tilt to that side as well. Now like I said, we are only going to refine the scape. So the other rocks that you see are not going to be as significant in size and stature as the other rocks. Now also, whenever you add rocks in an Iwagumi, don't always add all rocks with patterns. When you add all the rocks with patterns and you make those patterns distinct, okay, you will have too much going on. It is very, very hard to nail rocks with exact patterns like this. If you want the pattern in one direction and you really like the rock, the tip of the rock might actually be facing the other direction. Or the side of the rock that you want to actually show in the scape may not have the pattern that is needed for you. So the reason being why you should not use multiple patterns is you want some rocks to stand out. If you have too much going on, you will not be able to give that focus on certain rocks. Okay, so always have some rocks that do not have that much of character. Okay, they would be a little dull, but you also need those dull rocks to actually make these rocks stand out more. Okay, so that is what these rocks are going to do for us. They don't have that perfect round mountain kind of shape, okay, but these are also very significant. So do not ignore rocks like this. Always have rocks like this that are a little flat also. Looking at the pattern on this, are you able to guess where I'm going to place this? Of course I've added the substrate, I've told you which side, but in relation to the main rock. So where do you think I would place this?
Somebody says just in front from the...
Who says it's going to be on the front?
Opposite direction of the main rock. Behind.
He's asking the position. Like he's asking behind.
Behind. So, okay, I'm going to place this behind. Okay. The reason being...
The same side again?
Yeah.
Why?
Because I've already finished that side of the scape.
Okay. So, but it's
Okay.
all pointing in the same direction, huh?
They're not pointing in the same direction. This is pointing towards the back. So now I don't want everyone looking only on this side. Okay, so now what this rock does is, it creates the illusion that the scape is also going this side. because as you can see the pattern of this rock, right? Are you able to see the pattern? This is not the final position. I'm doing this to show why, layering your substrate or placing the substrate at different heights is very important. So I placed it equally. Now the reason why I placed it here is because I don't want the focus to be only on 60% of my tank. I've placed the main rock like this, facing this direction. I placed that rock also facing this direction. I placed this rock also facing this direction. So all of them are facing the front. They are angled towards the front. So now I don't just want to look at it and get lost in this half. So now if I cover this, it's still a good scape. Okay, but we have a larger tank. So for this area, I don't want anything to disrupt this flow. So these rocks, they're not to disrupt the flow, they are to actually accentuate the other rocks. So when I do this, okay, it tricks your eyes into again looking in this direction, or else none of you would have even seen this side. Now when this happens, when your eyes look at this direction, it will give you the sense of feel that the scape that I'm trying to create, or the scenery that I'm trying to create here, is actually longer than what it actually is. When I take off this rock, the scenery ends with that rock, because that's at the back. But when I place this rock here, your eyes start to notice this rock, and the patterns on this rock are guiding your eyes that side. So now you're going to look more of the tank from this side. I don't know if this is still making sense to you, but if you come closer and look now, that rock is guiding that area, or else you would have skipped this side entirely. So this direction, it's pointing at the back. Do you all agree? And the position of this, on the y-axis is the last. So I'm not going to place any rocks beyond this. This is going to be the last bit. Now since I don't want this side to feel left out, I'm going to place a smaller rock there. Now you have certain problems here. So if you look at this side, you may not be able to see a differentiation of much between this rock and that rock. That is why your planting will come in. I've left a small gap here, okay, and I will be showing you when I plant, okay, why I've left that space there. So using plants in certain ways. So this evolved later, did not start at the first itself. So first they only used, a single species of plants, okay, but we're going to use, about 4 to 5 different species, but the main layout is going to be covered with one type of plant. We're going to use certain plants in certain areas, which will give a better perception. It is going to separate these rocks basically. Now I'm going to add the substrate in a way that it changes the outlook of the scape. So never ever keep the substrate even or flat in an Iwagumi. Front is your choice, but sometimes in the front also, mostly in the front also, I don't maintain an even substrate, but a lot of people dispute it. They say it should be even in the front, but it's okay. But the importance is how we lay the substrate at the back. So now I'm going to significantly, not just raise the substrate, but significantly raise the substrate at the back. Now raising the substrate itself gives you the effect that we are going downhill, or we are climbing from that side. I haven't placed a final rock yet. Now that rock, since it was lower, it wasn't that prominent. But now when I place this rock, now I'm exerting a lot of force, but the soil is not rolling over much now. It's because of the small pieces of rock that we placed there. So after adding this rock, I'll just add a little more substrate on this side. So that completes my hardscape. You don't.
So there are a couple of more questions from the audience. Question number 1, should they use only Seryu, or what are the rocks are good enough for Iwagumi?
You don't necessarily have to use Seryu. You can use even round river rocks also and do an Iwagumi. Because like I said, we are most common scenarios where we can actually see and replicate in Iwagumi. One is mountains. Mountains, you have round boulders also. Okay, a random arrangement of rocks on the side of a river, or on the side of or by the shore also. So here you have different types of rocks. You can even use round river rocks. You can use dragonstone. You can use Frodo. Frodo is actually very popular because it does not change the water parameters, but Frodo will definitely leach some silica also into the water. So in my experience, when I've used Frodo, I've had a lot more diatoms than what I would have with Seryu. But again, diatoms is a phase. So you can use any type of rock that you feel will suit what you have imagined. So if I had imagined something like a river stream, or like a stream going and hitting, a pile of rocks, a fast flowing river hitting a pile of rocks, I would have used river rocks. So you're welcome to use rocks, and certain people are using a little bit of wood also in Iwagumi. Now there's no rule set in stone that you cannot do things like that. As long as you stay close to the basic principles, it is fine.
In fact, I think we had some of the forage rocks ready for the scape.
Yeah, we did.
Okay, so the next question is, people are asking, which is the ideal set of plants that you can put in a Iwagumi setup?
Like I said, carpeting plants. So most carpeting plants are fine. I would prefer the more tightly growing carpeting plants like Monte Carlo, Cuba, Glossostigma. Instead of something like, just to give you an idea as a comparison, I would prefer using Monte Carlo instead of something like a pearlweed. I would prefer using Eleocharis acicularis mini, which is a very small grass variety, than something like Dwarf Sagittaria. Because scale is very important. The larger plants that you use, the scale will definitely change. So, for example, if I were to use, let's say, Monte Carlo in the front, and I made a similar scape using Cuba, the one with Cuba would actually give you a better sense of scale. So, most carpeting plants is actually fine for an Iwagumi, but try to avoid the ones that are slightly larger in size.
Right, and which are the plant selection for today then?
The plant selection for today, I have chosen Eleocharis acicularis for the foreground. For the accent, now coming to I'll refer the previous question as well. I'm not going to cover the entire thing in with one species. Okay. Now, in between rocks, I like using different plants, that is slightly taller growing plants. Now, a lot of people use S-ripens. I don't like using S-ripens because of the leaf pattern. That might disturb the harmony. So I like using taller grass varieties or grass varieties that have wider leaves. So in this scape, I'm going to use Cryptocoryne parva in between rocks. So this we call it as accent, providing an accent. So basically, the transition between foreground and midground is generally called as an accent, or foreground to background, midground to background, etc. So here when we talk about accent in Iwagumi, it's the plants that we place in between rocks. It's to give that differentiation. So when you use a different plant instead of the general foreground plant in between rocks, it gives us the perception that the distance between two rocks is a little more. Now the reason why I said Cryptocoryne parva specifically is because I have angled these rocks. So if you come closer and if you notice, you will find shadows in many areas. When you place a rock straight, you may not have shadows. But when you angulate a rock like this, you will have shadows. Cryptocoryne parva will grow very well in low light. In fact, it is the carpeting plant that needs the least amount of light because it's a cryptocoryne. Cryptocorynes do not need strong light at all. So why I use parva in these areas is for the same reason. It will still fill up. Whereas if I use something like an Eleocharis acicularis in certain areas where there is no light, it will not grow. Even Dwarf Sagittaria may not grow in those areas.
Okay.
They increase the TDS of water, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Will that affect plants?
They will definitely affect plants growth. But again, if you're someone who uses RO, you need not necessarily have to remineralize the water. Okay, and remember we are using carpeting plants. This is not a Dutch style. We are not using any fancy varieties or mutations, lab-made mutations that require those very specific parameters. We are not going to use any Eriocaulon species. We are not going to use something like Centrolepsis dumondia, that is blood vomit. And we are not going to use any mutation. So those would actually require, a very controlled KH and this particular amount of GH, and they require stability also. So with the Iwagumi, you don't have to use difficult plants as such. I would say the most difficult plant you can use in Iwagumi is Cuba. So Cuba, the main challenge is, maintaining that high CO2 concentration at the substrate level, that is one. But the biggest challenge is for getting it to root properly. So for a lot of people who flood it and who do a dark start, who add the fish and then add Cuba, they would have this problem because of any slight movement can uproot Cuba. And the difference between Cuba and Monte Carlo is Monte Carlo can send roots, up to 6 inches into the substrate. So for people who have done a dry start before, and if you notice the sides of the glass, right, you would find roots going that deep with Monte Carlo. But Cuba's root system does not go that deep like Monte Carlo. And Cuba's actual growth rate compared to Monte Carlo is when you give it the ideal environment, it actually covers faster than Monte Carlo. But the problem is because it grows thick, the roots are not able to anchor the thick plant. So it ends up floating upstairs. Floating to the water surface.
So everyone, the scape is now ready, and I welcome all the audience to come and have a look at the Aquamatsia plants now. You may please also select the plants that we're going to add in this particular scape.
Okay, let's start planting the carpet now. So we hold it at that same angulation. Okay, I'm going to show it here so that it's more visible. We push it deep into the substrate. Okay, we don't leave the rhizome exposed. We push it as deep into the substrate as possible, wiggle and take it out. Okay, so the plants will definitely find a way. And plants like Monte Carlo, you can even push it completely inside the substrate. For those who are struggling with the plant rooting, right? You can push it completely into the substrate. The plant will definitely grow out towards the light. So we're going to plant it as densely as possible. I'm going to do it a little fast. Okay, I'm planting it very densely now because I have the luxury of using as many cups as I want. But normally when you plant, you're going to plant at maybe 50% of this density. So whatever cups you are using, you can just divide it by half to decide the quantity that you would need. So we've used only 5 tissue culture cups for this scape. Just for reference, this is a 60 by 35 into 40 centimeter tank. So the surface area is 60 into 35 centimeters. I made a similar Iwagumi in this exact same tank, which was I guess in my clinic about 6 months back. And for that I used a combination of still water and Shri Padma cups. And I used close to about 12 to 13 cups if I recall correctly. So this we've used only 5 cups, and as you can see in certain areas I planted very densely, which we normally don't do. I would say the quantity is excellent. It's on an average it's about 2 to 3 times more than what you would get from other TC cups. So with the pricing once Avinash announces, I'm sure it's going to be extremely value for money for hobbyists, and that's my genuine opinion.
So our aquascape is complete. Aquamatsia is officially launched. Aquamatsia plants have found their very first home in this very beautiful scape done by our very own Doc. First of all, thanks to Doc. He was very ready and came here, spent a lot of time, spent multiple days actually. First selecting the rocks, second scaping it on a day, third came here and scaped it. So first thanks to Doc, and thanks to everyone here that have come. So Aquamatsia is officially launched. Aquamatsia plants would be available at multiple stores in Chennai for starters. Aquamatsia plants can also be purchased from aquamatsya.com, and we'll be available at each and every store near you pretty soon. For now we are starting with the tissue culture of carpeting plants. A wide variety of carpeting plants is now available. We will very soon start Bucephalandras and Anubias also. Many varieties of Buse and Anubias are in-house propagated in our tissue culture lab, and for the first time multiple varieties are done in India and in the world for the first time, and they are also out in the market pretty soon.
So I have personally tried some of the Bucephalandra that was sent to me for testing, and those varieties are not what you get in the other farms. So certain very exclusive and rare varieties will also be available soon. And I know that the Buse craze is growing in our country, but getting plants sourced from other countries is turning out to be expensive, which is not for everyone. So this would definitely be a game changer for hobbyists and others alike as well. So someone from the hobbyist community has started a beautiful gallery, farm and everything just to cater to hobbyists like us. So I guess we as a community should give back to him as a reward for his efforts.
Thank you for watching the video. Thank you for spending your time on a Sunday, and thanks to everyone who participated online, and thanks everyone who also participated in the giveaway. It is time for us to give back to the community. Thank you.
Time can never be your trusted friend or your sworn ally. No, it's the harshest miss of all. And life is just a chain of moments spent, 1,000 hellos and goodbyes. Maybe a love like ours can lead out its call.